What are we discussing on today's Locked on Diamondbacks podcast? The Answerbacks alive. We'll talk about the Dbacks' fantastic comeback against the Kansas City Royals. And should the Dbacks be buyers at this year's MLB trade deadline?
You are Locked on Diamondbacks, your daily Arizona Diamondbacks podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked on Diamondbacks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. You're listening to who? The always charismatic host of this podcast, Millard Thomas. I'm a multimedia journalist and I'm a graphic designer, so please go check out my website, millardthomas24.myportfolio.com. On there you can see all my latest work, from my packages to my articles to my photos and my graphic design. This episode of Locked on Diamondbacks is brought to you by Booking.com. Booking.yeah. The right stay can make you a fan of any U.S. city, even your rivals. Check out Booking.com for your stay today. On today's Locked on Diamondbacks podcast, we'll be talking about the D-backs' fantastic ninth inning comeback against the Kansas City Royals, finishing the month of July strong, and should the D-backs be buyers at this year's MLB trade deadline. Thank you for making Locked on Diamondbacks your first listen every day. I would not be able to do this podcast without you, my loyal listeners, sharing, subscribing, reviewing, doing all that so I could do this podcast for you. Thank you. It's free. It's available on all platforms, so please continue to tell your friends. And one of those platforms is YouTube. Please hit subscribe to Locked on Diamondbacks on YouTube. But now let's get into the podcast and let's talk about them Answerbacks, because I think last night's comeback victory against the Kansas City Royals is on the short list of the best D-backs victories this season. I thought it was going to be a game that the D-backs wasted. D-backs take the early lead in the second inning. They go up 3-1 after the fourth inning. Kansas City Royals, they take the lead off the D-backs. Kansas City Royals, they're leading the D-backs all the way entering the ninth inning, 4-3. D-backs down one run. It feels like they're going to lose the game. It feels like the game was going to be lost through wasted opportunity, right? You had that moment in the eighth inning where you had Corbin Carroll on third base. You don't have to hit the ball that far. Sometimes you don't have to hit the ball that hard. It doesn't even have to leave the infield that much. There's so many ways to put the ball in play for Corbin Carroll to score. Christian Walker at the plate, cleanup hitter. He's had a great season for the D-backs, but in that moment, in the eighth inning, Christian Walker did not come through for Arizona, and it felt like that was going to be the moment where the D-backs potentially lost last night's game, right? When Christian Walker was not able to get Carroll home from third with less than 2 outs, the omen for the rest of the game did not feel good. It felt like the D-backs were potentially going to waste an opportunity and blow that series finale and continue to struggle in interleague play. That's not what happened. D-backs get 2 on in the ninth, and who is up at the plate to clutch it out? The man who has been on fire since coming back from the injured list, Gabriel Moreno. He is on fire right now. He has been on a tear in the month of July. I'm actually going to pull it up right now. His splits for this month, because Gabby Moreno this month has been insane for the Arizona Diamondbacks. He is batting .315 in the month of July, .866 OPS, and he's got 8 RBIs, and he's been just fantastic during this little stretch since June 29th. Gabriel Moreno, one of the leaders offensively on this team, and you saw it last night. Clutch go-ahead run to put the D-backs up 1 run, and then you get 2 more on. Who's up at the plate? Quetzal Marte, the D-backs all-star. What does he do? He homers for his 3rd straight game, and now the D-backs go from down 1 in the ninth inning, entering the ninth inning, I should say, to up 4 on Kansas City. The D-backs clubhouse is throwing a party. I'm throwing a party back in my crib in New Jersey watching this game. This was a fantastic comeback by the D-backs. Moreno continues his tear in July. Marte, 3 straight games, all the games against Kansas City with a home run. And then also, Eugenio Suarez keeps it going as well. We know since June 29th, when you look at who have been the offensive leaders, Eugenio Suarez can throw his name in the hat because he is also another guy in this D-back squad who has been fantastic this month. Eugenio Suarez last night delivers another home run. So far in the month of July, Eugenio Suarez has 6 home runs entering the month of July. All season, Eugenio Suarez had 6 home runs. That tells you how good Eugenio Suarez has been this month for the D-backs so far. He has a near 1,000 OPS in the month of July. He's been fantastic. We also got home runs from Jock Peterson and Christian Walker in this game. Like, it was a very good offensive performance overall. Eugenio Suarez, his home run, 416 feet, 110 miles per hour off the bat. Home run in all 30 ballparks. I just love looking at the home run stats. Jock Peterson, his went 445 feet, would have been a home run in all 30 ballparks. Christian Walker, his home run, 106.8 miles per hour off the bat. 405 feet, would have been a home run in every ballpark except one. Baltimore Orioles wouldn't have been a ballpark there. And then Ketel Marte, his went 419 feet, and his would have been a ballpark in 27 of the 30 ballparks. 3 ballparks, it would not have been a home run. Coors Field, Comerica Park, and Chase Field. Very interesting when you look at the home run stats. Great offensive performance by the D-backs. Ryan Nelson, he does just enough last night. Wasn't the best Ryan Nelson, but did a good job of giving the D-backs bullpen length. Once again, he's been able to, battle in all these starts recently. He's been so critical during this recent stretch of D-backs' success. Ryan Nelson has been a critical part of it, and he was at least decent last night for the D-backs. Paul Sewald, not good in the 9th inning. Thank God the D-backs had a 4-run lead in the 9th, but Sewald was not good. Gave up a couple earned runs, 3 hits overall allowed by Sewald. He does have some concerns, and maybe with the trade deadline around the corner, maybe we have to think about upgrading that bullpen, adding another piece if Sewald is going to be continuing to be shaky in these late game performances. So something to think about for the D-backs, but great series by the D-backs overall. They responded after losing the first game of the series. They have not been good against American League teams this year. It was actually the first team in the American League that they beat above 500 this season. So D-backs checking all the boxes so far to start the second half. Great series against the Cubs. Now you had a great series against the Royals where you lost the first game, and then you really responded in a big way offensively in the next 2 after saying your offense was struggling the first 4 games, maybe out the break. You really put up 2 back-to-back great performances against a pretty good team in Kansas City, and now the D-backs are set up the rest of the month, and we'll discuss how that's possible in segment number 2. Get supplies from the site that's made for the skilled trades, supplyhouse.com. Supplyhouse.com is a reliable way to order plumbing, HVAC, and electrical products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Shop a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from over 400 top brands and get your order delivered right to your door with fast shipping from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Get expert support and industry-leading service from the friendliest folks in the business and talk to a real person every time. Pros in the skilled trades can get a competitive edge by joining SupplyHouses.com's free Trade Master program. Every Trade Master gets access to a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Join the thousands of trade pros already benefiting from their free membership at supplyhouse.com/TM and order plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies from anywhere with just a few clicks at supplyhouse.com. And if you're thinking about going to an upcoming D-backs game and buying tickets, then I suggest using Game Time, because Game Time can save you up to 60% when you buy tickets for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. Save even more with exclusive in-app deals on select seats ahead of the game or event. Zone deals save you even more when you choose a section and you let Game Time choose the seats. All-in pricing shows you the total cost up front with no surprise fees at checkout. Take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. All right. Let's get back into the Locked On Diamondbacks podcast, and let's talk about the Dbacks finishing the month of July strong, because the Dbacks have an opportunity to do something special this month. They have a chance to go the whole month without losing a series. I know it sounds potentially impossible, but that's where the Dbacks are at. Remember when the Dbacks were down a bunch of games below 500? Remember that point in the season where the D-backs were like 5 games below 500 and it was just not looking good for them? The vibes were off for the team. The last day of May, entering the month of June, the D-backs were 25-32. They were 7 games below 500. They were on a 5-game losing streak. They had lost 5 of their they have lost 6 of their last 7 games entering the month of June, and they were just really struggling. And they've been playing pretty good baseball since then, and really good baseball since June 29th, where they have arguably they have one of the best records in baseball, if not the best record in baseball since June 29th. And right now, they're looking really good, and they have a chance after having a very good month of June. They're having an even better July, and they could potentially not lose a series this month. They started the month by taking 2 out of 3 from the Dodgers, 2 out of 3 from the Padres. They split the Braves, so that's not losing a series. They split the Braves, beat the Blue Jays 2 out of 3, beat the Cubs 2 out of 3, and now the Royals 2 out of 3. And now your next two opponents is the Pittsburgh Pirates and the Washington Nationals. 2 very winnable series for the Arizona Diamondbacks. Now, I'm not saying it's going to be easy, but the Pirates offensive unit, it's not like, the pick any fantastic offense, right? It's not even the 2024 Dodgers with all the injuries that they currently have. Like, this Pittsburgh Pirates offense is kind of putrid, right? We like the Pirates as an up-and-coming team. I think they're a couple years away from being pretty interesting, but right now, the Pirates have some very interesting, talented pieces up and down their roster, but the overall makeup of their team is just not there yet, and that's okay. The Pirates are still a couple of years away from being a really good team, and they're just not there yet, but it's still a trap series. You still want to take the Pirates seriously. I look at the lineup. I'm not too scared of the lineup, right? Outside of Brian Reynolds, who's a pretty good player, he's having a great season, and O'Neal Cruz, who can hit for some real pop. There's not a lot of guys in that lineup that scares you. I'm not too worried about it. You look at the offensive numbers for the Pittsburgh Pirates, and that unit is pretty much at the bottom 2, bottom 3 in almost every offensive category as a team. They don't really do nothing well. I know that's not proper grammar, but I don't care. Runs scored, average, OPS, stolen bases, home runs, whatever you want to look at. The Pittsburgh Pirates are probably not going to be good in those stats. And also the D-backs, they're not going to have to face Paul Skeens in this upcoming series against Pittsburgh. So we talk about a winnable series against one of the worst offenses in the National League, and you don't have to go against their ace pitcher, Paul Skeens, who is just absolutely fantastic. Yeah, that sets up well for the D-backs to win that series. David Bednar, I don't know what's happened to him, but he's been awful for the Pirates this year. I had him on a fantasy team. I had to drop him because he was struggling so much. And so really like the D-back spot in this upcoming series against the Pittsburgh Pirates. But if you're the D-backs, still don't want to get complacent in this series. The Pirates, surprisingly, in the month of July, have the same record as the D-backs. Now, the only difference is the D-backs have a better run differential than the Pirates this month, but Pirates have been playing good baseball in the month of July. So even though their offensive unit is bad, their pitching has been solid. So don't sleep on the Pirates too much, but it is a winnable series for the D-backs, and a series with how the D-backs have been playing should win. And then after that, you got the Washington Nationals, who in the month of July are actually 3 games below 500, so not having the best month. They have been outscored by almost 30 this month. They have a lot of interesting talent. I think the Nationals are another team that in 2 years, you've told me 2026, 2027, the Nationals are in the wild card mix. I would not be surprised if they go out there, make some moves in free agency, make some trades. I like the talent that they already have on the roster. Like, I could see the Nationals making some noise in a couple years, but right now, this D-backs team is clearly better than the Washington Nationals, and they should win that series. And so when you look at the rest of the month, you got Pirates, Nationals next. Like, yeah, it is set up for the D-backs to end the month of July strong. A strong close to the month could potentially give the D-backs a wild card spot. It's not a guarantee because the other teams in the NL wild card race are actually playing really good right now. You look at the New York Mets in the month of July, they have a better record than the Arizona Diamondbacks. So if you're the D-backs, even though I've been saying they're going to make the playoffs in the second half as one of my big second half predictions, again, every time I've talked about the NL wildcard race, I've said I like the D-backs on paper more than any team in the NL wildcard race outside of maybe the Atlanta Braves. But the D-backs are playing really good baseball. They're really talented, but some of the other teams in the National League are playing really good baseball. Not the Pirates. Well, the Pirates are playing really good baseball in the month of July, but the Padres, they're not playing great baseball in the month of July, but they've been able to keep pace with the D-backs all season. The Cardinals have been playing good baseball somehow, some way. They're winning games despite being minus 36 on the season. But the New York Mets are actually a team with a better record than the D-backs in the month of July. They've been on fire. They're destroying the Yankees right now. So the D-backs do have some competition. I think they're more talented than the other teams in the NL wildcard race. They're actually only 2.5 games back of the Atlanta Braves at this moment. The Braves are kind of struggling a little bit right now. So D-backs could even potentially work their way to the top wildcard spot with a strong finish in the month of July. So a lot is at stake for the D-backs right now. They need a strong finish. You don't want them to get passed up by any of these other teams in the NL wildcard race. And with the MLB trade deadline coming up, it's a perfect opportunity to improve their team. And we'll talk about if the D-backs should be deadline buyers in segment number 3. This episode of Locked On Diamondbacks is brought to you by Booking.com. Booking.yeah. With summer travel heating up, especially travel for baseball games, it's time to explore those U.S. cities you always secretly want to learn more about. Yes, we're talking about your rival cities with hotels, bed and breakfast, vacation rentals, resorts, and so much more on Booking.com. You might just find your perfect stay, even in your baseball rival cities. From hotels that look over stadiums to family-friendly resorts, Booking.com has so many choices across the U.S. for your summer travel this MLB season. I've already used Booking.com once to help me travel to San Diego to check out D-backs versus the Padres. It was a great time. I love checking out my rival cities. You should do the same. The right stay can make you a fan of any U.S. city, even your rivals. Book today on the Booking.com site or in the app. Booking.com, Booking.yeah. And then also, if you want to check out the best #1 daily fantasy sports app, I suggest using Prize Picks, because with over 5 million active members, Prize Picks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps, on Prize Picks, it's just you against the numbers. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stats projections and watch the winnings roll in. Get in on the daily action with your friends and become part of the Prize Picks community today. You can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. You can turn $10 into $1,000. Prize Picks is available in more than 30 states across the country, including California, Texas, and Georgia. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. That's code LOCKEDONMLB on Prize Picks for a deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks, pick more, pick less, It's that easy. All right, let's get back to the Locked On Diamondbacks podcast. And with the deadline a week away, July 31st, let's discuss if the D-backs should be MLB trade deadline buyers, because I think the short answer is yes. But I think it's also fair to have the take and say the D-backs should be buyers, but it's also okay if the D-backs do nothing at this year's trade deadline. I would not be upset if the D-backs did not make a move July 31st. I believe how the D-backs are currently constructed on paper, they are better than the team that went to the World Series last year. Overall, the talent is better on this year's team. You look at the rotation has more talent. I think the lineup has more talent. I think the bullpen is better. I think top to bottom, this is a better team than what the D-backs had last year. The biggest issue that the D-backs probably had last year, I think, in the postseason was lack of depth in the rotation. And I think by the time we get to the playoffs this year, the D-backs should have 5 starters ready to go in the rotation. Last year, also, third base was a struggle for the D-backs in the postseason. Well, as of right now, in the month of July, Eugenio Suarez looks like an all-star. If he can be anywhere reminiscent of this guy in the postseason, that's a way better product than what Eugenio Suarez was giving you. And so right now, with how the D-backs are constructed, I do think they're a better team on paper than they were last year. And I think entering the postseason of course, assuming the D-backs get there, I think they have a team good enough right now to contend with any team in the National League. That's why I don't feel like it's a need for the D-backs to make any move. Yes, there are moves that I would like the D-backs to potentially make. Of course, if you can upgrade your team, you should always do that. And that's why I think if you're asking me, should the D-backs be buyers or sellers? The D-backs for sure should be buyers. We see they're clearly in this wild card race. They're clearly a good team. They do have a couple holes that could be addressed on the D-back squad. But for the most part, if this is the roster that we have in the second half when no changes, like I would be fine with that. I think this team is definitely good enough to contend right now. I think about the way the D-backs play their brand of baseball. They still got the chaotic nature from last year, still got speed, still got havoc, but they do have a little bit more pop now. Where probably the Jock Petersons and the Eugenio Suarez in their lineup with the way Marte and Christian Walker have hit home runs. Like I do trust them a little bit more from a home run perspective, and maybe the Carrolls and the Gurriels can start tapping into some power too. All of a sudden, this could be a serious power threat team. And then, of course, we know what the rotation could potentially do when fully healthy. So I think when I think about this D-backs team and their brand of baseball with how deep their rotation could be, what their lineup could do, the different ways that they can score on you, I think this is a brand of baseball. This team identity can really travel anywhere and you can win in any ballpark. This is not one of those teams where it's like those 2010 Yankee teams that really thrived in only their home ballpark and needed lefties so they could just hit bombs in Yankee Stadium. Like, no, this is not a D-backs team that's only curtailed to their ballpark's needs. Like, this is a balanced team with speed and power and different kind of guys that could do different things. This is a team that could go on the road and still be very productive offensively. Like, this is not one of those one-trick pony teams. And so that's why I don't feel like the D-backs need to make a move, because I feel like they're such a versatile team already with how many ways that they can kill you offensively. Their pitching, I think, is pretty versatile as well. So overall, I do think the D-backs have a pretty good squad already, but I'm not going to be upset if the D-backs find a move that upgrades this team. Like if the D-backs want to go out there and make a splash and like, hey, we want to upgrade our outfield, the Thomas McCarthy duo, like just not good enough. Once we get to the postseason, we needed a little bit more power in our outfield. Gurriel and Carroll haven't been giving you that power this season. Maybe you want to go out there and acquire a Randy Rosarina, go out there and acquire, bring back a Jazz Chisholm. I think those would be pretty interesting moves if the D-backs want to go out there and upgrade their outfield and get a legit star out there. I think the biggest question, if you were talking about a trade deadline upgrade, it's maybe the health of the D-backs rotation. If you believe this D-backs team The rotation can come back healthy eventually in August, late August, with Merrill Kelly and Erod. If you think they can come back, be healthy the rest of the year, and then also be effective, then it's like, yeah, maybe the D-backs don't need to trade for another starter then. With the way Ryan Nelson is pitching and the Yulber Diaz's of the world, like the way those guys are contributing to the D-backs right now, like they're probably good enough to hold down the fort until you get the Erods and Kellys to come back and pitch. So if you do believe in those guys coming back and being healthy for the rest of the season, and just pray that one of those two guys are good enough for a playoff rotation spot come the second half, then maybe you don't have to trade for somebody at the deadline. But also, if you're telling me I don't believe in those guys coming back late in the season to be healthy enough, or it's just a big question mark, more Jordan Montgomery, I still don't believe in him overall as a starter for the rest of the year. So it's like maybe you do want to go out there and acquire someone to help out this D-backs team. Like, could one of those one-year wonders that we see this year, like the Jack Flaherty's, the Eric Fetties, like could one of those guys push the D-backs over the top in the playoff race? Maybe, maybe not. I think the most realistic option for the D-backs this trade deadline would probably be to upgrade the pen. Just go out there, get a lefty for the bullpen. Joe Mantiply is the only go-to lefty in the pen. Probably not good enough once you get to the postseason. So if the D-backs want to do anything, that's probably the thing that they're most likely going to do. But I mostly look at this team and say they have all the talent to complete or have all the talent to compete. The one thing that they do need is a healthy rotation. If they could get that in the second half, and then if they could get guys like Sewald, Corbin Carroll, Zach Gallen to live up to their potential, I think I think this team is more than talented enough to definitely compete for a World Series, and I think they're better than the team that went to the World Series last year. So D-backs should do their due diligence, sniff the market. This team should be a buyer, but if they don't get a deal done this deadline, it is all good. That is it for this edition of the Locked On Diamondbacks podcast. Come back tomorrow for more Diamondbacks news coverage and insight. And as always, stay safe, stay healthy. Deuces.